Here's what's happening on the right. Young women, I talk to young conservative women all the time about their lives and their goals and, the things that they want. And what's happening is they can't find men who are maybe more conservative. Usually they're looking for somebody who is religious, like a lot of conservative women tend to be God loving conservatives. And they can't find a lot of young men who want to marry a working woman now. And this is an actual problem that's coming up on the right. And to me, it's so sad because it's like, how did we get to the point where we're now telling young, conservative, amazing women that they're not attractive if they also work, if they choose to, let's say, do what I'm doing and what you're doing and like get their voice out there. But I'll stick with me just because I think conservatives listening to this will like the thought of another Megyn Kelly voice up and coming. Well, why wouldn't we want that? Why would we take somebody who's talented in this field and really wants to make a difference and have the messaging to her be, you're really not that valuable unless you give it up and go into the home and only have a family and only raise a family. And not only are we sending her that message, but young men are actually believing that. They're actually believing it, especially on the right, because like the trad mom has gotten so popular. And it's like, no, if we do that, we're not going to have any strong conservative or right-leaning women to provide a role model for younger conservative women who, and there's nothing to apologize for here, don't necessarily want to spend all their 20s and their 30s getting married and having kids, or can't. They just weren't able to meet somebody and definitely don't need to be shamed over it.
They can't find a lot of young men who want to marry a working woman now, Megyn Kelly warns, bewildered. To me, it's so sad. Sad? Try predictable. When you spend decades chipping away at the family, worshiping at the altar of dual incomes, and treating stay-at-home motherhood like a prison sentence, don't be shocked when conservative men start opting out of feminist roulette. Let's make something clear. Right-leaning men want marriage because they want families. Full stop. Not a tax incentive, not a roommate with a W-2. They want children. They want legacy. They want someone they trust to nurture their children, not pawn them off to hourly daycare workers while mommy goes to lunch with her work husband and returns home just in time to complain about emotional labor. And Megyn's stunned that conservative men aren't buying that package anymore? No, Megyn. What's actually sad is watching the right try to juggle feminism and tradition like a flaming sword act. This isn't some weird bug in the system. It's the direct result of treating boss babe conservatism like it's a new and exciting flavor of traditional values. Spoiler, it's not. Christian and traditional men don't want corporate wives. They want wives, as in mothers, homemakers, supporters, builders of homes and culture, not co-workers who funnel their energy into quarterly performance reviews and Pinterest side hustles. The problem isn't that these men are intimidated by a woman's career. The problem is that they aren't interested in marrying someone who pledges her best hours and best years to another man, her boss. Is it really so hard to understand that a man who sees himself as provider and protector doesn't want to compete with Chad from HR for his wife's loyalty and attention? Is it really conservative to promote a life model where your kids are raised by strangers while mom files spreadsheets, then comes home to argue about who did more mental labor this week? Let's ask a serious question. How do you define conservative, Megyn? If you think it's sad that men want a mother for their children instead of a corporate clone with a podcast and a gym membership, what exactly are you conserving? Is your vision of conservatism just lower taxes and a robust defense of Israel? Because here's what's real. Nature is conservative. Chaos reverts us to factory settings. And the factory setting is not dual income burnout and career chasing fertility collapse. It's families. It's functional gender roles. It's motherhood being a full-time calling, not a weekend hobby. This isn't hate toward women who work. My own wife works. This is just answering Megyn's question with brutal honesty. This isn't about oppressing women. It's about honoring the highest function they have, bearing and raising the next generation? You want to talk about sacrifice and fulfillment? Try giving your body to bring life into the world and pouring your soul into raising that life. That's not small. That's not less than. That's the foundation of civilization. But corporate feminism trained women to trade that in for a cubicle and quarterly bonuses. And now the right thinks conservatism is women in pantsuits giving TED Talks about hustle culture. Conservatives need to conserve something. Start with the home, start with the family. Start by acknowledging that if a woman submits gladly to the CEO and not to her husband, the entire structure is already broken. Nobody's saying a woman can never work. But there's a huge difference between a family farm or part-time Etsy shop and the soul-deadening treadmill of commuting, pumping, spreadsheeting, and collapsing into bed every night, wondering why her marriage feels like a business arrangement. Right-leaning men aren't insecure. They're clear-eyed. They're choosing not to build futures with women who think helpmeet is a slur and nanny is a parenting style. And the data backs them up. Over 60% of Americans say children do better if a parent stays home to raise them, not strangers at daycare, not screens, not public schools babysitting them for 40 hours a week. Among men, that number is even higher. 65% of men believe a stay-at-home parent is better for kids, and in conservative religious communities, it's nearly 70%. That's not fringe, that's the majority. Even younger men on the right, despite the gender confusion blitz, aren't buying into the stay-at-home dad fantasy. In one major survey, only 35% of young men said society benefits when mom works and dad stays home. The rest weren't so sure or flat out disagreed. Conservative men especially still believe in traditional roles. Around 35% of Republican men openly say the man should provide and the woman should stay home. That's double the rate of Democrat men. And let's not forget, left-leaning men are a whole different category. Many of them don't want children, don't care about biblical order, and statistically, often enough, don't even want women. That's not speculation. That's modern liberalism's masculinity crisis in action. And here's the kill shot. Fertility. The boss babe path doesn't just stretch a woman thin, it often ends in demographic collapse. Career-oriented, college-educated women average 1.7 children below replacement. Women with only a high school diploma or some college, many of whom stay home or work part-time, average 2.0 or more. And among young childless women, less than half say they definitely want children at all. Young conservative men, by contrast, are more likely to want to be fathers. So tell me again, who's flaking on family? Megyn's marriage already crashed once under the have-it-all lie. So why is she shocked that young men aren't lining up to repeat the mistake? But Megyn isn't the only one missing the point. Enter Kim Everson.
I don't get this tradwife trend. Why do men want to revert to the 1950s when women were drugged out on Valium, psychiatric drugs, and diet pills while men ran off and cheated, then came home and abused their kids? The result was the free love 60s and boomers. Not exactly the picture-perfect leave it to Beaver family.
Kim, we are talking about men who are on the right or more religious in nature. Is there anything about them that you understand? Why not just ask instead of making stuff up? You're better than this. And here's where this conversation needs some maturity. This is the ideal, not the demand. Yes, many conservative men are married to wives who work full-time, and it causes no crisis at all. No one's saying this is the only path or that you need to be some victim if you're in a marriage that's not perfectly traditional. You can still have a family, lead your home, and raise children without replicating 1952. There are countless ways a man can make himself valuable, respected, and needed. No one's saying this is some kind of rule book. The point is, this is the natural order. And the hidden truth is that most women, even on the left, are fighting their instincts to conform to a feminist ideology they've been sold. That's why Kim's even asking this question. If she were really the independent boss babe she claims to be, why would she care? Why would she care that other women are choosing something different? The answer is because she knows deep down the traditional path speaks to something in women they're told to suppress. She sees it, she feels it, and it unsettles her. That's not weakness, that's the whisper of truth getting through the noise. If you agree that conserving the family means actually conserving gender roles and not glamorizing burnout and calling it empowerment, leave a comment below. If you're done pretending daycare plus dual incomes equals winning, you're not alone. The tide is turning back to factory settings, back to order, back to truth.